Hello and welcome back to the Welsh Premiership podcast and episode 31 today. As you can see, joining us today is a current RGC head coach and a former player with Newport, Harlequins and Worcester, and a Welsh international as well, Ceri Jones. Ceri, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me on the pod.
Yeah, so this season you've taken charge of RGC. How do you feel it's gone so far?
Well, obviously it's slightly difficult, to be honest here. We started off with a poor defeat down in Cardiff, but since then I think we've been improving week on week, and I think everyone will see from the last two performances that we're there or thereabouts now. Premiership game comes down to the last kick of the game, and I think we got slightly unfortunate with one or two decisions, let's say, and also this weekend against Cardiff, we're right in the game against a very good Cardiff team. It comes down to right at the end of the game again, and we end up with a yellow card and a penalty. On another day is probably a penalty try, which I think the Cardiff coaches agreed on the day that probably it could well have been. I'm not here to sort of to have a go at referees. Obviously, it's a very hard job they've got, but it just shows that we're moving in the right direction and we're right in these games, right to the end. And on another day we get the points.
Yeah, and you host Merthyr this weekend. So what do you expect from them?
Well, everyone knows Merthyr and everyone knows the chief, so they have a certain brand of rugby that they're pretty confrontational. They're a lot of big men, especially up front. They're one of the biggest packs around. So I expect them to be coming for us at the scrum. I expect them to be coming with the drive. I expect them to be pretty confrontational and direct. I think you showed their scrum last week against Vale was pretty dominant. So that's an area of the game that we're going to have to get right. And I think the challenge for us then is to sort of keep the ball on the field and really move the ball as much as we possibly can. I think there's a real contrast in our half of the cup, where you've got three sides are playing pretty expansive rugby, in Newport, Cardiff, and ourselves are really throwing it around. And then obviously you've got Ponty, Merthyr, and Emmervale are playing a slightly different brand of rugby in terms of a more forward dominated game, more direct. When the challenge is different week on week, so you've got sort of two teams we play against in Cardiff and Newport, and we're talking about having real width in our defence and having to combat an expansive game, and then it turns around then to the other three teams then when it's a real set piece game, and we know we have to get our drive defence right, we know we have to get our scrum right, and we know it's going to be a confrontational game. So it's a real contrast in the league, which makes it interesting and exciting.
Yeah, and Ceri, I know you became coach at RGC quite late before the start of the season. I just wanted to know, how did the move come about, and sort of what attracted you to go up there?
Well, look, it was quite a long process, to be honest with you. The process started, back in May, but for one reason or another with the union, it took longer to sort of make the appointment than we all would have liked, really. And the general manager, Alan Pritchard, who's here today, didn't join until late either. So obviously after COVID, everything took a lot longer to get into place than anyone would have liked. So it meant I didn't actually get started until the 6th, because I'd already had certain commitments I needed to keep to before I came up here. So so it wasn't ideal. So when I first came up, I almost said to the boys, I said, well, we'll class the cup competition as almost a bit of a extended pre-season to a certain extent, so we can get all our systems in place and try and hit the ground running when the league comes. And the challenge has been back to the players now. In the meeting we had yesterday is, the honeymoon period is over now, fellas. We've established our systems. We need to start picking up points now. So that's the challenge over the next 4 games and leading into the league. So we know we're not where we want to be at the moment, but the challenge is to move forward. In terms of actually coming up and taking the role, look, it's a really unique opportunity up here. I think everyone would agree. You look at RGC, you look at the facilities that are here. You've got everything and more than certainly certain regions have to a certain extent. Like there's. I worked at the Dragons and they haven't got an indoor barn, for example, right on your doorstep. You've got a state-of-the-art gym, you've got a running track, you've got a pool just across the way there we can use. You've got the sea, you can do pool recovery in the sea. We went down and did that one day. So everything is here to a certain extent. There's a huge appetite for rugby in North Wales. It's a lot bigger than anyone from down south, and I'm from down there, and I've played a lot of rugby in different areas of the UK as well. And it's the people up here are so welcoming, and they so want it to succeed. And it's also there's a huge amount of people up here. So there's a lot of chimney pots, and a lot of people speak about that in terms of fan base. There is a lot of people up here. So, and the crowds have been really good, to be fair. Up over 1,000. I think it was for last week and the week before, and that's us. Not winning at the moment. So you can imagine the prospect. Hopefully, when we do start winning, it could really grow. And I think there's a real appetite to grow the game up here. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity. And then also you start looking at the young players coming through. I think Ilan Evans and Ceri Jones are probably the two best examples. Both 19 years old. Going on to 20 now, and a tight head in the second row, and I think they've both got really good prospects. I think Ilan in particular, I think, has been absolutely outstanding so far this season. With Andy Williams has been injured, and his family have had COVID, so he's had to miss out, and he's been able to come in. Ilan has, and he's really controlled the air. To be fair to him, he's taken really vital balls in the line out, and he's putting real pressure onto opposition now. So he's turned that into a real weapon. So I think he's somebody who could be people can get excited about for the future, because you look at second rows around the regional game and in Wales, it's not an area where we're particularly blessed with. So he's 6'7". Yes, he's got work to do. Physically, he still needs to develop and be able to hit people. But I worked with Corey Hill before he became an international, and during his journey to where he got to, and I don't see too many differences between Ilan and Corey. He's fast across the mark. He's an intelligent boy who can call a line out. So I think there's real big prospects up here. And also, if you look at the players here, they haven't had the level of competition at a young age that you do get down south. My son, is playing at the moment and coming through the pathway down in South Wales, and it's so competitive. You've got so many kids who are all desperate to make professional rugby players, and they can all see a pathway. We're in North Wales, there's no real pathway like that. There's no trodden path to professional rugby that they can see, and they can see as feasible. So it's much harder for them to see the end result to a certain extent. So all they see is just sort of almost playing community rugby or RGC as your limit. They can't see a trodden pathway. So that's the challenge, and it's a big one, but it's an exciting one. So yeah, sorry, it's a long-winded answer.
No, that's all right. We like that.
And there's always a debate about whether the Premiership is sort of suitable for the young players. When you look at RGC this season, you've got players like Evan Lloyd coming through. What are your thoughts on sort of academy players, playing in the Premiership?
Look, it's one of the first things I did when I came up here was open conversations with the regions to look at players who have, after the COVID time, haven't played rugby for basically 18 months. And there's a huge amount of players, which I completely understand from a professional regional point of view, that you need to have training numbers. So when it comes down to a Tuesday, you need to run your best 15, and you need 15 players to run against to make it a good training session. And I get that. But the problem with that is those players who are running against people generally run the opposition plays against them. So they're running the Leinster plays. They're not particularly running your Dragons plays or your Ospreys plays or your Scarlets plays. You're running the opposition plays against them. And, generally, the team, the region will win, won't they? That's what you want to achieve by the end of it. You don't want, the imitation Leinster team ripping them to pieces. So it's, how much are they getting from that to a certain extent? So they need to have an outlet for them to play. Now, I think the interesting part about it, and to answer your question, is yes, it's really good for them if we can put the right brand of rugby on. I think if you look at the Cardiff game against RGC, and if you look really detailed at it and you start to get the GPS up, which I think would be really interesting for you guys to have a look at some stage and speak to some of our S&C coach, Wilson Cusack. I think he said he was 45 minutes ball in play against Cardiff, which is extremely high. It's really, really good. That's such a good level, and such a good ball in play time, and the meters covered on the GPS. I think you'll find it right up there. So that brand of rugby that was played in that game, I thought it was an outstanding game against Cardiff. I thought it was quality by both teams all the way through, and I think most of the people that watched that game. So I think if those boys are playing in that, people like Evan and Brodie, and credit to Brodie as well. He's come up and played extremely well, and it's been great for him. It's a confidence boost. He gets to play. He gets to start. He gets to be there. Yeah, not the opposition. He gets to be the main man, and he gets to be able to throw in pressure situations, for example, for a young hooker. So he knows the pressures on him in certain ones. He's got to hit his darts, or and that's how you learn. So I think it is a really good place. And the other question would be is if they're not getting it through the Premiership, where are they going to get it? They need to play. There's not an established A-League, and A-Leagues are, they're good and bad to a certain extent, but I don't think they're really working in England either, because it ends up being on a Monday night, and then those boys have to double up and come in on a Tuesday and run units and defence against the first team. So I think it is the feasible answer, but the real key to it is trying to play the right brand of rugby in the Premiership. I think that's what's good to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned you're using the Cup as a bit of an extended pre-season, and you're ready to hit the league. But what is a realistic goal for you in the league?
Well, that's a really good question, which I'm not entirely sure the answer to be honest with you, because I don't really know where we're at. And the problem with having the Cup sort of split in half, I know where we are with our sides, and then, like I said, you've got some good teams in our half of the league. I'm not sure sure how it compares to the other half. So, but we're an ambitious club. We want to be right up there. We want to finish in the top half of the league. That's where I would say we want to be. So we want to establish ourselves in the league. We want to be in the top half, and then years 2 and 3 we want to be pushing right back up there. I want to be pushing right back up there. I want to be up towards the top, certainly by the end of year 3, which I've got a 3-year contract, so I certainly expect that to be up there by then.
Yeah, and Ceri, I know you were involved in the Emmervale squad in 2016 when they obviously won the Premiership. Where does that rank in your achievement?
Well, that's a really good question. As a coach, it was a really exciting time to be involved with Ebbw. I was very fortunate that Jason Strange brought me in, and I worked with him for year 1, and then obviously Jason left then to go to the Union, and then Nigel came in, and we were very fortunate that we'd already sort of built on the foundations of other people, really. So, Jason had done a great job with that squad, and they'd obviously been promoted year after year after year, and they're a very tight group. And it was just a matter of just keeping that all together and just really working with the group, and credit to them. And it was a really exciting time to go and win that league. And great for the boys, a great bunch of people and the supporters and the management. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that'll be right up there with my achievements as a coach. I think I put that alongside sort of when I did take over the Dragons, and then going and beating Scarlets on the Judgment Day game, which was massive. It was the first win in Judgment Day, and it was the first win over another region for quite some time. So those two are right up there.
I have to say I did enjoy that game personally as a Dragons fan.
No, it was good.
As you mentioned, you had a spell as a head coach as the Dragons. Good wins. You beat the Ospreys. You beat the Scarlets. How do you feel your time there went? And do you feel like you're a bit unlucky not to stay on permanently?
Yeah, look, it was an extremely difficult period for a lot of reasons. It's very unusual that your managing director goes and then your head coach goes within a couple of months of each other. And this is also, if you remember, that the actual time was when there was a lot of talk about the Ospreys and Scarlets merging. There was a lot of talk about trying to get agents out of the game. So there was a huge amount of distraction within Welsh rugby at that time as well. The players weren't quite sure where things were going, and it was really difficult from every perspective. But it was a matter of nobody knew where we were sort of going at the time. It was just trying to gel the boys together and trying to get a performance on field as much as we possibly could. So it was extremely difficult, but I thoroughly enjoyed it at the same time. And again, credit to the players because they were the ones who stood up and put the show on the road at the end of the day. And against some really difficult opposition, we came away with some good results. So I'm reflecting back after obviously Dean comes in, and when any new head coach comes in, it's down to them to put their stamp on a club, on a region, and Dean decided to take it in the direction he wanted to take it, and that's entirely up to him. as a head coach, you've got to drive the direction you want to take the region in, and he decided to take it in that direction. So that's up to him entirely.
Yeah, and I know your father Lynn played for Newport and Vale. How important was it that he got you into rugby and you could follow his footsteps?
My dad would always he's always a great influence on me with rugby. So rugby was always in our household, whether it was watching Super Rugby in the morning or going down to us rugby club with my brother and playing on the sideline. So, but in terms of actual sort of playing of the game, he's a farmer, so he'd never come and watch me. I think he watched me once until I sort of got to sort of 18, where he could come down and have a couple of pints and watch. So my mum actually took me everywhere. I played for Newport. I played for Pontypool District when I was a kid, and then I went into Newport District because I changed schools. I went from sort of Usk into Killeen Comprehensive, so you go from Pontypool into Newport. So yeah, that was a lively game then when you played Newport Pontypool District, as you can imagine. But yeah, from there, like I said, I played Newport High School All Boys for all the way through my sort of youth, and my mum was always the one who used to get up on a Sunday morning and take me here, there, and everywhere. So I think it's credit to her, to be fair.
Yeah, and I know you had a spell when you were younger in New Zealand, sort of playing rugby out there. I know you look at back on that with really fond memories, and sort of that's what kick-started your playing career. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you enjoyed that?
Yeah, it was a strange one, really. So I finished school at 16 and I was working on the farm, and then I got an opportunity to go to New Zealand when I was quite young. So I played a season for Usk, and I was enjoying it, playing for my hometown club, and I was doing pretty well, scoring a lot of tries at that level, and it was just like it's a bit of a waste, to be honest with you. So I thought, right, well, let's do something about this. Let's try and sort of see where I can go with it. So my dad had played over in the Bermuda Classics with Alan Martin and those guys. So he went over there and he got friendly with them, and he was speaking to a guy called Jock Ross, an ex-All Blacks second row. He's about 6'10" he is, so he's from Mid Canterbury, and they always said if anyone wants to come over and see them or whatever, or play. So I went over and took the opportunity. So I rocked up into Canterbury, and he came and picked me up and brought me back to this farm in the middle of New Zealand somewhere. And then next thing you know, I was in the gym first thing the next morning, which was a bit of a shock. 6 o'clock in the morning, those boys train, and they train before work, they train after work. Their commitment levels they weren't even semi-pro. I think they got about $30 for the month for playing for Mid Canterbury, but their commitment levels were incredible. They were doing 3 gym sessions a week, all at 6 o'clock in the morning. They were running Bronco tests. Just their commitment levels were just crazy. And you're sort of infectious to a young player. You get yourself into it, and you really enjoy the training aspect of it. And like I said, all everyone talks about to you about is rugby. You can have a talk with somebody's granny, and she give you an in-depth analysis on what the Crusaders did on the weekend. It's incredible. Oh, did you see that? That sort of dummy fake play by so and so, and you're like, what? This is unbelievable. They're obsessed by it. They really are. So I really enjoyed it, and I managed to play then sort of Mid Canterbury under 21s, and I had a chance to play against the All Blacks under 21s from Mid Canterbury when I was over there, which was an awesome experience, because when I was coming through, I was always sort of in the same area as Yestin Thomas, and we were both playing Lucid, and both from exactly the same area. We actually played together at district level, and I was hooker and he was Lucid at the time. So yeah, even though I played for District A at 20s, Yestin came in and played for Wales at 21. So and obviously Duncan Jones then the year after, the year before, and then Gethin the year after that. So I was quite unfortunate with a glut of sort of quality Lucids around me. So it was always a bit of a challenge. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I also then got the experience then the year after to go over and go to South Africa. So when I started playing for Newport, obviously Gary Teichman was there at the time. We went on tour to South Africa for his testimonial. So we played against College Rovers, and then we played against the Sharks at King Stadium, which was sold out. It was an unbelievable experience. So I asked him if I could stay over and play for his club side. So I played for College Rovers then for the next 3 months after that tour. And that was great as well. So I managed to get 2 great experiences, one in New Zealand, one in South Africa, and just both those experiences, I think, were good for me to grow up as a young man, and also to experience different cultures and different rugby. So yeah, I'm really thankful for those opportunities I got.
And yeah, like you mentioned, you had a spell playing for Newport. What are your best memories playing for Newport?
I think probably the cup win, the cup roll and the cup win were outstanding. Again, coming in as a young player, firstly, sort of going into a squad that was just sort of a normal Newport squad at the time, with just people like Rod Snow, where you're only sort of, a couple of professionals were in there. Again, another loosehead icon I had to go up against, which was tough. But yeah, great man, to be fair. And then Tony Brown comes in then the following year, and the whole thing goes professional. It was a crazy but exciting time. So the whole squad goes professional. Bring in likes of Peter Buxton comes in, and later on Percy and Shane Howarth and Simon Rawalui and Mike Voyle and Goffey came back, and Matthew J. Watkins, bless his soul, he was there as well. So Alex Popham. So it was a really good group of boys, and it was a really exciting time. It was we were all new to it, and I don't think some of it we got right. It was sort of, but it was really good fun, and we had a great time, and going on to win the cup together. And I think we got to the quarterfinals of Europe against Leinster, and we were in the lead in that game, and then ironically the lights went out. Literally, all the lights stopped working at Rodney Parade, so nobody was sure what to do. So we had to go back into the changing rooms, and then we came back out, and Leinster took advantage in the last 20 minutes and managed to turn the game around and win it. But that was the quarterfinals of the Heineken Cup at the time, so you can see what level we were playing at that stage when we'd gone away and we'd beaten Newcastle away and beaten Newcastle at home, got through to a quarterfinal. So it was a really good group of players that were going places. And to see Rodney Parade, I think we played Bath there, and there was 10,500 people there. It was crazy. The support levels were massive, and it's kind of funny to see it now, how it's not sort of from that base, how that didn't really kick on. So I think there was probably some mistakes made there at some stage, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and you made a name for yourself at Harlequins, and then you finished your career at Worcester. What's some of your best memories from those days?
Harlequins, yeah, it was again sort of stumbled upon it really, because there was injuries to a couple of players up in Harlequins, and at the time I'd been injured, and we had a strong group at Newport then. So we had Rod Snow, Peter Rogers was there, Chris Anthony, Adrian Garvey, and myself as the five props. So it was tough at the time. I wasn't capped, and everyone else was. So it was difficult to get opportunities. I was still playing, quite a bit of rugby at Newport. I ended up with, I had 99 or 100 appearances for Newport over a sort of 4-year period. So you can see I played a fair few games there, but an opportunity to go to Harlequins was massive. So I managed to go up there, and then it was a weird week. The first week I went up because Nick Duncombe had just passed away within that week, so they had the funeral for him within that week. But they played Bristol away. I came on at half time, and I think we were sort of like 20 or 30 points down, and we turned it round, and I managed to score 4 tries in that second half. So we got a bonus point and finished within 7. So it was a really good start for me. Just managed to get my hands on the ball, and it just sort of fell for me. And then I started the following game away against London Irish, and then we beat London Irish away, and I think that was Quinn's first win away for, I don't know, for a couple of months at least. So it was a sort of a dream start for me. And off the back of that, I managed to really settle into it and have a fabulous run, which ends up in well over 200 games, and a couple of really good European performances. Win the European Cup, or the Parker Pen, I don't know what it's called now, the Challenge Cup, is it? Managed to win that twice. And just had a fabulous time. Just absolutely loved it, and it's a fantastic club, and played with some real, absolutely outstanding players, people like Andre Voss and Nick Evans and Danny Cares, and a whole host of them. And probably sort of can't start going through them all because there's so many good players I got to play with, and it was an outstanding time in my life.
Are you enjoying watching the Quins at the moment?
They're playing some good stuff, aren't they?
Really nice.
I went up to watch them actually end of last year. I went to watch them in the Newcastle game then, and it was the week before that Bristol game, the semi-final, and I went and watched with a few old Quins mates, really, with Paul Volley and Ollie Cohn and Jim Evans, and we were all saying how good they looked in attack. We were all slightly worried about the defence, to be honest with you, but I think they sort of went down the Kevin Keegan approach, didn't they? So it seemed to work for them, and they're playing some great stuff at the moment. I think they'll always play that brand of rugby, and I think when they always play that brand of rugby, they're always going to be a threat because they score some absolute worldies of tries, and it's a job to defend it when they're playing like that and offloading and playing so fast. So no, credit to them, and they look like they're enjoying themselves and playing great stuff. So it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the sort of the players you played with in Wales for Newport. Who are some of the best players you played with or against during your time in England?
Oh, probably playing against. I think one of my biggest challenges, but two of my probably biggest challenges and the ones I enjoyed the most was probably Julian White, who a phenomenal scrummager with Leicester, always a hard bloke to play against, and then Carl Heyman, of course. Obviously, recently been diagnosed with the dementia thing, which is awful, but some player in his time. In terms of me playing directly against somebody, his profile in the scrum was unbelievable. It's just a job to get to attack him, and you just such a good professional as well. So yeah, they're two probably the best I played against, and that's, like I said, just purely from a front row point of view and just looking across the scrum and seeing what you're coming against, and there's two absolute legends there. So yeah, they were both tough.
How did you get on against them?
Yeah, all right, actually. No, I had my times. All right. So Julian was a funny one. So he had a big Leicester pack around him. So when he was with Martin Johnson and those guys, yeah, he was really tough. He had the better of me a few times, but then sort of later on in his career, he played with not quite such a good pack, and we had a better pack, and I had the better of him once or twice. So and Carl Heyman was always a great test, but I just they're the sort of games you get yourself right up for. So yeah, I think I took as good as I gave, I think.
And an Achilles injury, ended your career. How tough was that to deal with?
He was extremely tough. He was Saracens away on a 4G pitch, actually, and the scrum went sideways, and my boot didn't move. Probably had too long of studs in, I would say, to a certain extent. But you obviously, as a front rower, you want to give yourself every advantage you possibly can. And suddenly I heard this crack, and it's like, I think Matt Kovacic was on my flank, and he thought I'd broken a bone because all he could hear was like a bone breaking. It was that sort of crack, and I knew immediately that the scrum was all on top of me because it all went sideways and down, and I knew there was something seriously wrong. But it was one of those injuries that's a funny one. When you completely break something, it doesn't hurt that much. You'd probably hurt a lot more if there was a little bit left on, but there's just gone. So my foot was just flapping. So I thought, oh yeah, well, I'm in a bit of trouble here, and I'm a 36-year-old Welshman playing in the English league. It doesn't bode well, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, I rehabbed it. I came back, and there was a change in management at Worcester at the time then, because originally, and Richard Hill, I was going to go the following year, do one more year as a player, leading into being a coach, leading into being a scrum coach. So it was going to be a sort of 6-month play-in, and then probably 6 months transition into coaching, and probably do a bit of both at the same time. So I was always transitioning to that. Sort of before that, my time at Harlequins, I'd done a lot of scrum coaching up at Roslyn Park and at Richmond, and been doing some of the academy stuff, and I coached Surrey into 20s during my time there. So I was always going down that pathway. So the transition from that point of view wasn't so bad, because I came back in and then I went straight into the scrum coaching aspect, and possibly could have rehabbed my Achilles a bit better than I did, because I don't run particularly well at the moment now because of my Achilles. I probably could have rehabbed it a bit better, but apart from that, I think, like I said, the transition wasn't too bad. I was very fortunate.
And obviously you were fortunate enough to get capped twice by Wales in 2007 against Australia. How much did it mean to you to be able to represent your country?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely massive, and I mentioned my father before, and he played for Newport and Emmervale, and he played several games for Wales B. I think he was on the bench for Wales against Canada, but never got on. So that was a big sort of huge part of his life is the fact that he never got capped. And I think likes of Jeff Wheel and Alan Martin, people he played against for years, went on to achieve great things, and he never quite made it. So I think from a family point of view, to be able to to get that cap and wear it and sing the anthem was just huge for all of us, really. Like, for you don't like to think you do it for your parents or anything. You do it for yourself at the end of the day. But I've obviously been massively invested in rugby my whole life. But it was such a proud moment, for everyone and for us as well. Because we haven't really had anyone from the Usk area actually probably come through and play for Wales. Whereas I was a sort of genuine one. We've got people like Bryn Meredith, who now lives in Usk, but he probably didn't come through the system, but he's there every week. And then you go, Gerald Davis just lives up the road, and we got Scott Quinnell and Nigel Davis, but I think they're pretty much all imports to Usk at the moment. Whereas I was probably more of the local guy who actually did play for the club and come through. So it was a hugely proud moment for everyone sort of who came with me on the journey, and Newport High School old boys I've already mentioned. So it was a big thanks to all of them, really, that eventually you sort of get the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and to finish, we've got a teammates quiz for you. So to start with, who's the worst dressed teammate you've played with or coached?
Oof, worst dressed. Mike Ross. Yeah, Mike Ross had a horrendous dress sense. You've never seen anything like it. He was a classic sort of white trainer and jeans guy, but not trendy white trainers. You're talking high techs or something like that. When you're talking the really wide bell bottom jeans, that sort of thing. And then he'd sort of wear some sort of like a line dancer's shirt with a long Mac, like an Inspector Gadget Mac, and it just like the worst outfit, and just all completely mismatched. And just like, well, you seem to think that looked quite good in Cork and Ireland, but it did. You're going out to a swanky sort of club in West London, it didn't go down quite so well. So especially with Ugo and them boys, just looking at him, just pulling faces. What is that? So yeah, Mike Ross, definitely.
And who is the best drinker you've seen?
Oh, the best drinker. Oh, there's been a few of them. It's got to go to Rod Snow. He's the only guy I know who can actually do pints of rum and coke. Just incredible. You go on the beers, and then you just think, oh, he's being sensible now. He's going on the coke. He's being sensible. And he turned to me, and go, farmer, have a look at this. Have a taste of that, farmer. And it was just, oh my god. So it's like full dark rum and then coke in the top of it. So just like, yeah. It's got to be Snowy, like I said.
And who's your favourite changing room DJ?
Oh, these are tough questions. These are. Who was a favourite change room DJ? There's a few different ones, actually. I'm trying to think who was the best on it now. Actually, I'm probably in a strange way. I'm going to have to go for Rossi again, because even though a lot of the boys didn't like it, me and him was sort of more into our heavy metal. So a few of the other boys were into a bit of the rock and roll, the sort of R&B scene, I would say. So that would be more Ugo's and Danny Cares. They used to like to think of themselves as the rock boys because they were into their R&B and all that. But then just before the game, like myself and Rossi would like to get a bit of heavy metal on there just to get ourselves in the zone to go out there. So I would always prefer his playlist to some of the other guys.
Is there someone that takes it on at RGC, or is it like a mix of people?
At RGC, there's a bit of a mix of things going on, to be honest. I'm not entirely approving of their playlist at the moment, so I go in. I generally just sort of showing my age now, so I just go in there and just look at them. And I said, "What is this?" So it just sounds like noise to me, and I just shake my head at them. So there's a few different boys are doing there. I'd say Afon Bagshaw probably takes control of most things around this place, and like I said, when he's in charge, it's pretty good. But some of the young fellas, I don't know what it is. It just sounds like noise to me.
And without revealing too much to us, who's the biggest liability you've seen on a night out?
Oh, biggest liability. Yeah, I'm probably answering the same questions here. After all the rum and cokes, it's probably Snowy again. He's quite good at that. There's quite a good story of him getting a ride on a taxi, which is probably not for the podcast, but yeah, he can be a nuisance. After all those rum and cokes, he can take a bit of looking after. Bless him. yeah, I'd probably go with Rod as well. Like I said, you'd say if you get a couple of them pints of rum and coke down, like I said, he's a big man to look after.
And if you were stuck on a desert island, who's the teammate you most want to be with and one you'd least like to be with?
On a desert island, let me think. I'd probably go with my old mate Tanny Fuga. Me and Tanny used to car share for the whole time that we were at Harlequins, pretty much the whole 9 years. So we spent a huge amount of time together in the car on the way up and the way down. So we just chill out. He gets some of his Samoan tunes on in the background, and it'd be a very chilled out point of view. I remember going up in the car up to training one day, and it was an early start. I think we had to be in for sort of 7:30 or something, and we lived quite a fair way out, so we left at about 6. I was sleeping in the back of the car, and Steve Soialo, the two Samoans, were in the front of the car, and they were driving. And then there's Samoan tunes on, which are quite chilled out, sort of beats in the background, and I'm going along this, and all I hear is this bum 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 bum. So I wake up. I said, "Boys, what's going on?" I said, "We got a flat tire," and they were like, "Oh, we thought it was a helicopter, eh?" And they were looking out the window, and they were driving along in the car. I just thinking it was a helicopter going. I'm like, "Are you two nutters?" I said, we're on the A3 going up. There's cars going past, and there's this bang bang banging. Like, so we had to pull over and change the tire off the back of it. So I did speak to Dean Richards off the back of that. I said, we got to get ourselves a sponsored car here, mate. I said, we're going to die with these two Samoans in the car. With Tanny, because he's quite chilled out. And who would I not want to be on there with? Oh, God. I think at the moment, I wouldn't want to be on there with Ugo, to be honest with you. If I was on there and listening to his Strictly Come Dancing stories and how well he's doing, and oh, God, I don't think I could take too much of that. And how well he's doing with the question of sport and how much money he's making, I think it'd just be too much for me, Yeah, I think Oogs would be too much. Sorry, Oogs.
All right, that's a wrap for today then. Thanks for joining us, Ceri.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Been a pleasure. Best of luck for the weekend, and
thank you very much.
Thanks to those of you that are watching as well, and remember to follow us on social media at Welsh Prem Pod, and we'll see you soon.